Everyone, today we're going to do the Field of Leaves Creative Challenge, and what you're going to want to have ready is your wooden block. These are called cradled wood canvas or cradled wood board. If you like using those, that's the term you can search to find them. The first thing we're going to do before we get started is we want to paint this black so that the paint will dry before we get going. And then you're going to need 3 colors. We're going to use our green, our yellow, and our orange. And then also you want to have your Nuvo drops. And so just start by painting your square black. All right, when we work on wood, it's pretty absorbent, so it shouldn't take too long for this to dry before we can go ahead and get the stencil on there. All right, so again, we are going to have the background black. As far as colors go, we're mostly using yellow, a little bit of orange, a little bit of green as we're creating the sunflower design. And then one of the last steps will be the Nuvo drops, so have those handy. I usually will try to, before I use them, stand them up on the lid just to get the air out from the tip so we don't get any bubbles. You're going to need your 16 arm stencil, and this one should fit pretty square right in the middle there. And then you can use as many or as few lines as you need to get going, but you definitely will need at least 8 arms. So do your north, south, east, and west, and then you can do the ones in between. And that'll give you 8. And then as far as dotting tools, I've got my set of tools here. We're going to use the mechanical pencil as well. If you don't have that, you can use the small tip of your blue to pull some of those lines. And we are going to use the eraser tip as well. So make sure you have those handy. And we'll start with our center dot. The center dot, I'm going to use the blue rod and orange paint. And we're going to have one large dot right in the center. And then I'm going to use the blue stylus, the large end, and I'm going to add 16 dots around the circle. So it would be 1 on each line if you've got the 8 lines, and then 1 in between the lines for a total of 16. So I always start with my north, south, east, and west. That helps me keep things centered. So now I've got 8, and I'm going to do 1 in between each dot for a total of 16. All right, for the next row, I'm going to make 1 dot in between each of these. So it's going to be 16 dots. You can use the blue stylus on the large end, or you can go up a size. You can use the green stylus on the small end. I've got a little room, so I think I'm going to go up to the green, but you can use either for this. And then I'm just going to make another row and put 1 dot in between each of the previous dots. And then we're going to move on to use the eraser. And with the eraser, we're going to dip in the yellow, and we're going to create a pin-like mark. And so I'm going to leave space. So I want to be able to pull a pin. If you've got your cheat sheet, we're going to work on these right here. So the first part is to leave room, and then I'm going to make a sideways oval on each line. And then I can use a mechanical pencil or a small stylus and just pull that pin inward. And so we need 8 of these. So I'm going to do my north, south, east, and west first. And then I'll do the 4 in between for a total of 8. And whenever I use the eraser end, I just wipe it off just like a normal tool. I've got a baby wipe here, and I just wipe off the paint. All right, that brings us to step 3 on the cheat sheet, and we're going to use the green stylus tool, and we're going to walk some of these dots around each pin. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the large end of the green stylus, and I'm going to make a dot in the center with the large end. And then I'm going to switch to the smaller end of the green stylus, and we're going to walk the dots around each side. And what I do is I kind of curve it around and go towards the point of the pin. And I am going to do both sides, but I like to do all the right sides first and then go back and do all the left. But do whatever easiest for you.
Hey Tara, I have a question. My paint seems to be too runny. Is there a way to fix that?
The only way to fix it would be to mix it with like a a thicker paint. Do you have, let me think. If you have a little white paint that might be a little thicker, you can mix it with that, or you can mix it with a gel medium. If
Okay.
you have a gel medium.
Okay, I'll try that.
Okay. For the second part of step 3, we're going to go back to the large end of the yellow paint, and I'm going to add one more dot just beyond the petal that we created. And then I'm going to switch to the small end of the green stylus, and using the yellow paint, we're going to pull a swoosh on each side. Now we're halfway through step 4. The next step is to create some more of the pins, and these are going to create another row of petals for our sunflower. So I'm going to use my eraser and my yellow paint, and we're going to go in between each of these petals. So on mine, I've got the 8 lines, and then I've got the in between section. So I'm definitely going to leave some room so that I can pull this pin a little bit longer than the smaller pin. So I'm going to go about right here. And then just like we did earlier, you can take your mechanical pencil or your stylus tip and just pull that pin inward. And there will be 8 of these. In step 5 on the cheat sheet, we're going to use the large end of the green stylus, and we're going to add a set of 3 dots at the end to crown each of these pins here. And so what I'll do is I'll find kind of the next row, or leave a little space for the center dot, and then one on each side. So it's going to end up being a triangle on each end. And that brings us to step 6. We're going to use the blue stylus, the large end, and we're going to walk the dots around these petals. And I will do this kind of elongated again, kind of going towards the tip of that pin there. That brings us to step 7. We're going to go back to the eraser tip again, create another oval. So we're going to work kind of with the same petal, and I'm going to leave a little space, and I'm going to create an oval. Instead of going sideways, I'm going to go up and down. Then I'm going to switch to my green stylus on the large end, and I'm going to add a set of 2 swipes on each side, going down towards this dot here. And again, I like to work on all the right sides and then switch to do all the left. That's kind of your call. You just want to make sure you start each dot around the same place. You may notice when you do this, some of your swipes are longer than others. You can always go in and just pull them a little bit farther with the tip of your pencil if some are too short. I only do that if I feel like it's going to be really noticeable. And the second part of step 8, again, we're going back to the eraser tip. I use this a lot in this design, and we're going to go add in some green. And you can look at your spacing. So originally I had done this design on just a little round coaster. So I got a little extra room. I can go a little bit beyond the circle. And so I'm going to create a long oval in between each of the petals. So for me, that's one on every line. I'm going to use my green stylus, the large end, and I'm going to create one dot just outside of that oval all the way around, so 8 of those. And then I'm going to switch to the small end, and I'm going to walk the dots around each side. And at the end of these green petals, I'm going to add another crown of 3. So you're going to want to look at your piece, look at your spacing in the smallest areas, which are going to be the sides of your square. And if you need to go down to the blue stylus to fit some dots in there, do that. If you don't have room to put a crown on, that's fine as well. You can add other embellishments. But I'm going to do this the same way that I did the crown over here. I'm going to add the middle dot and then 2 just below it to create that triangle crown. And then step 9 on your cheat sheet is these Nouveau drops or top dots. So you can look at your design, and this one is more spread out than my original. I always mention, it just kind of depends on your mood and how you're creating, how it's going to turn out. It's the exact same pattern. Mine's just more spread out. So I got a little more room to add some embellishments. But what I did on my sample was I added a drop in the center. Now my center's a little wet, so I'm going to demonstrate, but I'm going to dry this first, just a smidge. When you do top dots, you definitely want a film over the first layer. But you can use your Nouveau drops to add a dot in the center. When you use these Nouveau drops, they will spread a little bit wider than the drop that you create. If you can, try to hold it straight up and down at a 90-degree angle. It'll be easier for you to make those drops. But I added a drop in the center on my original, and then in between each one of these pin sections. Now I don't have as much room here, but I'm still going to do it. I added 8 drops around the center. And then on my sample, and you'll see the difference in the spacing here, I added 1 large dot next to my green petal here. Now over here, I've got quite a bit of room. So instead of just adding 1 large dot, I'm going to add 1 large dot, and then I'm going to take some of these Nouveau drops and walk the dots just to fill in some of that space. And so you can use this just like you would use regular paint as well and put a little bit in your palette if you want to. So if you've got room like I do. You can fill in some of that space. And that is the end of this design. I'll show you the sample versus the piece I made tonight. So it's just a little difference in spacing there. I have more room here. I have less room here. You can certainly add different top dots if you want to. You can add more embellishment if you've got the space to do that. So take that opportunity to use it and make it yours. If this is your first time using the Nuvo drops, they will dry just like acrylic paint. They may take slightly longer than the paint because they're a little bit thicker, but it shouldn't take too much longer before those end up dry for you. And then once everything is dry, you can go in and remove the white lines with water. An extra word of caution, just make sure everything's completely dry before you go in there and try to pull those up. And then that's all I have for you tonight. I encourage you to share your finished piece in the group so everyone can see. And then I will see you all next Monday at 6:30. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.